Friends, I am glad to welcome you to my channel, and today we have the 5th lesson on the watercolor tasks that I ask you. You know, I thought so that we wouldn't get too tired of these painting assignments. Probably next time we will draw some light work, which will also be so very simple, and then we will alternate tasks, exercises, and work. Now I need to draw 6 equal squares, 3 on top and 3 on the bottom. In general, that's what I'm doing now. 8 by 8 centimeters. I got each of the squares, and the distance between the squares is 1.5 centimeters. The format of sheet A4. Keep in mind, you can also take the format of sheet A3, that is, take a sheet of a larger format, and draw squares measuring 10 by 10 centimeters. So, in the second square, we make stripes like this. The width of one strip is 1 centimeter. Accordingly, if you have a square of 10 by 10 centimeters, then we will have 10 stripes. In this case, I have 8 stripes. Some of the exercises that we are going to do today are similar to the exercises that we did in the second and third lesson. But you know, they are only similar. The essence is the same. We will do stretching in 1 and 2 tones, but since there we did stretching on stripes, and here we will do stretching on squares, it is quite difficult to lead down and stretch. When the width of the volume is yours, where you do stretching, it's much bigger. I put the solution in a separate container of the palette, and I will need to make the first square just a one-color fill. Let me remind you that I have approximately the plane on which I draw my plexiglass is at an angle of 10 degrees, that is, on the upper part. Under the upper part, I put tape so that I have this drop that you see now. It descends down. The purpose of this exercise, the first one, is to make a uniform monochrome fill. This drop, which forms along the entire length of the lower part of the square, I carefully remove then with a semi-dry brush. If you have a solid fill, it means that you have completely coped with this task. The main thing here is not to yawn. If you are doing this exercise, your phone rang, you don't answer the phone, and you continue to do this filling. Then call back and say, "Sorry dear, I was filling, I couldn't pick up the phone." Here, and I'm going to start the second task. Now I also need to fill this square with a solid color at the beginning. I took a little paler, that is, into this container from under the first square, where I had a little color. I added a little water to make the tone paler. And I'm leaving it for a while, this second square, but we'll come back to it later. I proceed to the third square, and in the third square, I need to do a stretch in one tone. I chose blue. You can also choose any color you like best. And again, I need to form along the entire length of the square. Here are all 8 centimeters. Here is this drop, which I then slowly lead down with a brush. But every time I add water to this drop. But you know, to be honest, I didn't have a very good stretch in one layer this time, and at the end, I then walked through this square, the third and fourth square. But if you also decide to do this, then it is necessary that your square completely dried up. If you feel that it turned out to be quite pale, and the stretch is not so much visible here, there is not exactly this stretch, but somewhere it seems that a larger fracture is visible, then you can walk a second time. I'm going back to my second square. You probably already understood what kind of task this is. I will need to apply 8 tones here every time, or rather not 8 tones. It's the same solution that I mixed in the center. It remains there. immediately do a large volume of solution. I missed a little bit here, I didn't do enough. Then I had to make a solution, which in principle also became problematic, because the second time you will never make the same tone of the solution. Therefore, try to mix it from the very beginning. Mix a lot. By the way, you can also use a form for freezing ice instead of a palette. It may even be more convenient, because there are these indentations in it much more than in the palette that I have now. And every time, now we are talking about the second square, after the next layer dries completely, I go down a step lower and make another layer. While I'm making the fourth square, the second layer dries out. But in principle, you can do otherwise. You can take a hair dryer and just blow dry each new layer. In the fourth square, as you may have guessed, I stretch, but on the contrary, from a light tone to a dark one. At first, I just take a little water, then each time I add a little more blue to it and go down until it completely turns into blue. Again, I went back to the second square. A little, you see, I didn't hurry up to the end. My second layer dried up. I started applying the third layer, and this third layer floated up a little. You know, you drive more quietly, you will continue. In this exercise, this is exactly the motto you should have in your head. Because if the paper is not completely dry, and we start to do further, then it's a real trouble. The fourth square, I need to make a stretch in two colors already. I chose yellow and blue. I start with blue and finish with yellow. In the palette, as you can see, I mixed the middle color. I mixed blue and yellow. I got such a green medium color. And then I start with blue and go further down, gradually adding that one. The color that I have embedded on the palette is the average color. And then, slowly, gradually, when the last third of this square begins, I use pure yellow and add it to this green puddle that I have on the square. Along the entire square, I gradually add yellow. After each square, as you have already understood, I return to the second square. This is such an exercise in Lesarovka, so that you understand that the imposition of the same tone, what it gives a rich color. You know, but as I said, I mixed the solution for my second square for the second time, and probably you can see what came out of it. That is, it was darker than the first solution I made. And so there were problems with the second square too. Learn from my mistakes. You will do everything better correctly, properly. And the last sixth square, it will also be a stretch in two colors. Now from yellow to blue. I chose these colors. It's not necessary to take the same colors. You can make a stretch from yellow to red, or from red to yellow. Here, I also mixed the average color on the palette, and starting with yellow, I gradually lead down and add the tone that I got on the palette, the average tone. Well, in the end, I come to a pure blue color. You know, after looking critically at my work too, this is at the end. After all, I was not satisfied with the third and fourth squares at all, so I, as I said, reopened them. Well, at the end of this video, after a couple of minutes, you will see the final version that I got. I finished the sixth square. It didn't work out a little bit either, unfortunately. Here is the stretch that I would like. Well, to be honest, I was in a hurry. Well, After the sixth square, I also go back to my second square. And then, of course, I stopped the video, waited for it to dry completely, and each time I made a new layer, going down one step lower. Thank you very much for watching, friends. If this video was useful for you, please like it, ask your questions in the comments. I will be happy to answer them. And thank you very much for your activity, for your comments, subscriptions. It's really very nice. Until we meet again, as I said, the next watercolor assignment will be exactly some kind of picture. We will draw some beautiful picture together. I will definitely think about it this week. Well, all the best. Have a good time of day and see you again.